What if I told you that most of what you think is intimidation is nothing more than your mind overreacting to a situation? In fact, you might be the one giving away your power when you feel intimidated. It sounds harsh, but it's the truth, and it's exactly what the Stoics understood centuries ago. Men today often feel pressured by the world around them, from bosses to relationships to society's expectations. But here's the kicker. Stoics never saw intimidation as something they couldn't control. They didn't fear the anger of a superior or the confrontation of a competitor. They didn't allow their emotions to dictate their actions. Instead, they stood firm, calm, and unshaken. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, how do they do that? Are they made of steel? In reality, Stoics weren't born with some magical ability to stay calm. They practiced. They learned to manage their responses, especially when the world tried to push their buttons. It's easy to be calm when everything's going your way. But what about when your boss is breathing down your neck or someone challenges your authority? The Stoics had a simple answer: don't react. Respond intelligently. This may sound counterintuitive, even frustrating. After all, isn't it normal to feel fear or anger when faced with intimidation? Of course it is. But here's the difference. Stoics don't let those emotions dictate their behavior. They have mastered the art of not reacting emotionally and instead take calculated actions to keep control of the situation. In this video, we're diving deep into how Stoics stay calm when faced with intimidation, without becoming pushovers or giving up their power. We're going to uncover the key principles they used and how you can apply them to stay cool, calm, and collected when life tries to throw you off balance. So forget everything you know about fighting back or standing your ground in the traditional sense. The Stoic approach to intimidation isn't about fighting at all. It's about staying unmoved. Most men don't realize this, but the feeling of intimidation is more about your mind than the situation itself. When someone stands over you or challenges you, the instinct is to feel threatened. But here's the hard truth. That feeling is just your mind reacting to the situation, not the situation itself. Intimidation is all about perception. It's not what someone does to you, but how you interpret it. A strong, confident person can stand tall in a room full of powerful people because they understand this simple fact. No one has the power to intimidate you unless you let them. Think about it. How many times have you felt intimidated by someone, only to realize later that there was no real reason to feel that way? This happens because your mind automatically jumps to conclusions, like assuming someone's challenge means they see you as weak or inferior. But that's just a mental projection. For example, let's say you're in a meeting with your boss. He criticizes your work in front of everyone, and you immediately feel your stomach drop. That feeling of panic, it's not coming from the boss. It's coming from your interpretation of the situation. You start to feel small, like you're being judged or not good enough. But in reality, your boss is just expressing his opinion about your work, not your worth as a person. The Stoics knew this. They understood that our thoughts create our emotions, not the external world. They taught that the real power lies in how we perceive things. The fear you feel when someone tries to intimidate you isn't because of their actions. It's because of the meaning you attach to those actions. If you can change your perception, you can change how you feel. The key is to separate the external world from your internal response. When you feel intimidated, pause and remind yourself that nothing has changed about you or your abilities. Your mind is simply reacting to the situation. You have the power to shift that reaction by choosing to stay grounded. Too many men think that emotions are something to fear, especially when it comes to intimidation. They think if they feel anger, fear, or anxiety, they've lost control. But here's the truth. Emotions are just signals, not threats. They're not the enemy. Your reaction to those emotions is what matters. When you get intimidated, your body sends you signals. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your thoughts start spinning. It's your body's natural response to a perceived threat. This is normal. But where most men go wrong is in how they react to these emotions. They act on their fear. They let anger take over. They get defensive or shut down completely. This is where the real problem lies. The Stoics didn't believe in suppressing emotions. Instead, they believed in managing them. Emotions are part of being human, but just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it. Think of it like a storm inside you. The storm is real, but you don't have to let it destroy everything in its path. For example, imagine you're facing a confrontation at work. Your boss criticizes your performance in front of your team. You feel the anger rise, but instead of letting it explode, you pause. You take a breath and think about your response, not your reaction. You might feel angry, but that doesn't mean you have to lash out or shut down. You can use that emotion to fuel a calm, collected response, where you listen, understand, and then address the situation. The Stoic practice of mindfulness helps here. They didn't let their emotions control their actions. Instead, they took a step back, evaluated the situation, and chose the best way to respond. This doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. It means understanding them and deciding not to be ruled by them. The lesson here is simple. Your emotions are natural. They're not your enemy. But if you act without thinking, you give away your power. Master your reaction, and you'll stay calm no matter how intense the situation becomes. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that you can't control how other people behave. No matter how much you try, you can't force someone to treat you the way you want. People will challenge you, disrespect you, or try to intimidate you. But here's the kicker. You have no control over them. You do, however, have total control over how you respond. That's where the Stoic mindset comes in. They understood that the only thing we can control in any situation is ourselves. We can't control other people's actions, their words, or their attitudes, but we can control how we choose to react, how we maintain our composure, and how we stay true to our own principles. When someone tries to intimidate you, whether it's a boss, a colleague, or even a stranger, it's easy to get caught up in their energy. You might feel like you need to defend yourself, fight back, or somehow prove something to them. But that's when you've lost control. In reality, all you need to do is stay grounded in your own actions, knowing that you are in control of how you handle the situation. Life's full of situations where you'll be tested. You can't avoid it. There will always be people who try to push your buttons, to make you feel less than. But it's in those moments that you have the most power, the power to decide how to respond, to not let anyone else dictate your emotions or actions. Remember, no one can truly control you unless you allow it. When you're faced with intimidation or conflict, stop and ask yourself, how do I want to handle this? The choice is yours. You can either let the situation control you, or you can control the situation by choosing how to respond, how to stay calm, and how to stand your ground. It's not easy, but when you realize that your power comes from within, you'll stop letting outside forces dictate your peace. You don't have to control others, you just have to control yourself, and that's enough to stay calm in any situation. Let's be real here. Too many men think that facing intimidation means getting into a fight. Whether it's with words or actions, the belief is that standing up for yourself means challenging others, arguing, or pushing back hard. This is where a lot of men go wrong. They fall into the trap of thinking that standing your ground is all about conflict. But here's the truth. Real strength isn't in fighting. It's in staying unmoved. Stoics didn't waste energy on petty arguments or proving they were right. They understood that responding with aggression or resistance only gives power to the other person. When someone tries to intimidate you, fighting back only escalates the situation. And guess what? You're no longer in control. You're playing their game. A lot of men today think that being tough means always being on the offensive, always proving a point, always fighting back when someone challenges them. This is immature, reactive behavior, and it's exactly what the Stoics avoided. They knew the true test of strength wasn't in how loud you shout or how hard you push. It's in how calmly and firmly you stand your ground without reacting emotionally. Here's some tough love. If you're constantly ready to argue, to prove that you're better, or to show everyone you're not afraid, then you're letting the world control you. You're reacting to situations instead of responding thoughtfully. It's time to wake up. The real power comes from choosing not to engage in unnecessary battles. It's about standing firm in your belief and not allowing the actions or words of others to shake you. When someone tries to intimidate you, your true power lies in your ability to stay calm, to not let their words or presence mess with your inner peace. You don't need to fight, just stand your ground. Keep your dignity, keep your cool, and keep moving forward. The Stoics knew that by not reacting, they maintained control over the situation, and that was the ultimate power. So stop wasting energy on unnecessary battles. Stay unmoved. Your calm is the real power, and that's what will get you through any situation, no matter how intense. Here's a hard truth for you. Fear is the one thing that trips up most men when faced with intimidation. It's the thing that clouds your judgment, makes you second-guess yourself, and leads to irrational decisions. Fear is the enemy, not the situation at hand. But here's the difference between a man who stays calm and a man who falls apart. Logic over emotion. The Stoics didn't let fear control them. When faced with intimidating situations, they didn't let their emotions take over. They didn't react out of panic, anxiety, or insecurity. Instead, they used logic and reason to guide their actions. They didn't let fear make decisions for them. They looked at the facts, they assessed the situation, and they responded calmly. This is a lesson every man should learn. Fear is natural, but letting it control you is a choice. When you're in an intimidating situation, your heart races, your palms sweat, your mind starts spinning. It's easy to let those emotions dictate your behavior. You might feel the urge to fight, to defend yourself, or even to back down completely. But if you let fear drive your actions, you're no longer thinking clearly. Your decisions become irrational. You may say something you don't mean, overreact, or even back down when you shouldn't. This is where logic comes in. When fear starts to rise, take a moment to breathe and think. Ask yourself, what's the real threat here? Is this challenge something you can handle, or are you letting your emotions cloud your judgment? Most of the time, you'll find that the situation isn't as bad as your mind is making it out to be. Logic brings clarity. It cuts through the fog of fear and helps you see the situation for what it truly is. The Stoics taught us that fear is often exaggerated in our minds. They believed in looking at problems logically, without the emotional noise that fear creates. So when you're faced with intimidation, don't give in to the fear. Use logic. Stay grounded. Take a step back, assess the situation, and then act with clarity and calm. You'll find that more often than not, you're in control, not the fear. Here's the real kicker. Most men are weak because they let intimidation control them. They think it's a sign of strength to react with anger, defensiveness, or aggression. But the truth is, you're only weak when you let your emotions rule you. Strength is the ability to stay calm, focused, and unmoved in the face of fear. Strength is using logic, not emotion, to guide your actions. If you're constantly letting intimidation dictate your mood, your actions, or your decisions, then you're letting someone else have control over your life. Wake up. Real power comes from within, and it starts with mastering your own mind, not reacting to the world around you. If you can stay calm, collected, and logical in the face of intimidation, you're already miles ahead of most men. I want to hear from you. How do you deal with intimidation in your own life? What have you learned that helps you stay calm in tough situations? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'll personally reach out to connect. Let's create a real conversation around this and push each other to become stronger, more focused men.